Hello, everybody. It's really exciting to be back with you again. Uh, we enjoy these monthly workshops so much because it gives us an opportunity to interact from people all over the world. So it's great to see you again. I'm Dr. Ray Lindley. I'm the Executive Director of Array Global Education Services, and we're excited to begin. We have our workshop schedule kind of planned out for the year, and we have some great workshops. We'll talk a little bit later about today's workshop, but first I want to introduce Dr. Jake. And Dr. Jake, you and I talk almost every day, but we don't get to talk with all of these people every day.
I know, and Dr. Ray, it's been kind of strange this just the 2 months that we didn't have workshops in June and July, because it's something that we always look forward to. We did hear from people throughout the summer. We had a lot of great news going on in Array Global, a lot of activity, but no workshops and no trips for us. But that's okay, because it's great to be with you. I hope everyone's had a great summer. I know my summer's been great. Have a few more days before my schools come back into session, but we're excited to be with you and talk about this very, very important subject that we have today. Dr. Ray, how was your summer?
Well, I'll tell you what, it was, of course, as most of you know, I live in Colorado, right at the foot of the Rocky Mountains. We had snow as late as late May. And then the next week, the temperature was in the hundreds Fahrenheit. Then the next week, it was back to 60. And the temperature changes so much. So every morning when I get up, I have to figure out what kind of clothes I'm going to wear today. I'm going to dress warm, or am I going to dress for the cold? And so that's been the most exciting thing that's happened to me in this summer, other than the great news we have that we're sharing with everybody from Array Global that we now have. And Dr. Jake's going to talk about that in just a little bit.
Yeah, do you want me to talk about it now, Dr. Ray?
Sure, why not?
Okay, well, if you get onto our website and you go under About, under Associations and Partners, we have some really exciting partnerships that we have made over the last couple months. It started out in the springtime, and we're able to finalize these partnerships during the summertime. We are members now of NCPSA, the National Council for Private School Accreditation. I encourage you all to go and look at what NCPSA is about. They're a recognized organization by the Department of Education in the United States, and there are many accrediting bodies that are part of their association. They also allow foreign students in NCPSA schools so they can get visas. Also, you can see their name on the Office of Non-Public Education in the U.S. Department of Education's website. But one of their partners that they have is the Middle States Association, one of the oldest accrediting bodies in the United States. And we now provide dual accreditation with Middle States. So we have these two partnerships, NCPSA, Middle States Association. Schools can be accredited by Array Global, go through the Array Global process, and come out with two accreditations. I don't want to get too much into it, because next week, next Saturday, 9 p.m. Saudi Arabia time, Dr. Ray and I are going to be talking about these great partnerships. If your school is interested in any way, please come and we're going to be talking about school improvement, about accreditation. And if you show up, we actually provide a discount if you do join Array Global and Middle States. You'll receive a $250 discount for just attending that workshop. But we're really, really excited to provide this, not because it's a stamp on a document or you can put it up at the front of your school, but because it helps you in your school improvement efforts. And like Dr. Ray always says, that school improvement effort is going to improve the quality of instruction and education for each one of your students. And that's what our goal is. Well, our ultimate goal is to change the world, but we're going to do that through education and do it through changing educating the hearts and minds of every single student. So we're really, really excited about that. Put that on your calendar, and we will see you not just today, but we'll see you next Saturday.
Yes, and you know, the really exciting part about this is that some of you schools have been somewhat concerned because of recognition by the U.S. Department of Education. Well, Middle States, if a school co-accredits with us and Middle States is one of the regionals here in the United States, and having their stamp on your transcripts and on your documents, if you go through the dual process that Dr. Jake talked about, having their stamp assures that your students will be able to attend colleges and universities, assuming they meet the entrance requirements around the world, including the United States. So this will give us the opportunity to accredit schools throughout the world, even Egypt, if we co-accredit with Middle States. So
yeah,
that's
it's kind of exciting too, Dr. Ray, because we're getting more schools in the United States and North America. We have a lot of interest in South America. So it's not just helping develop our reputation and strengthening our reputation. We're seeing our influence being impacted throughout the world. And Dr. Ray and I do this. We do this because we want to help. We want to improve education throughout the world. So we're really, really excited about that. I hope everyone is part of our newsletter and have been receiving our newsletter, because we have a lot of upcoming great activities and a lot of announcements. We talked about Middle States and NCPSA. We're also starting our academic competition, our Write Around the World, our writing activity, our writing competition that we want all of your students to be a part of. It's free. And it's a great opportunity for students to develop their writing skills, be a part of a cool activity that connects them with students throughout the world. And it gets your students engaged in this activity that otherwise they might not want to write as much. So please make sure you follow along to us on Facebook, look at our website. The focus of the writing is gratitude. We want to focus on helping people see the positive in their lives and the things that we should be grateful for. So make sure that you're part of that, and look at our other services that we do have. We're here to help, and we're here to serve, and we're here to support you.
So we're as we said, very, very happy to be back. And let's get into today's workshop. Dr. Jake and I decided on the topic for today, mainly because of the effect that has had on students' lives during the last couple of years, in school, out of school, online, not online, in person, not in person. And we know that we have had students around the world and people around the world who have lost that personal contact with somebody. And we do believe that one of the reasons why we have seen so much, you've probably read of some of the school shootings here in the United States, somebody who was really not well known to the school or the community comes in and shoots a gun and kills several people. And so there have been some studies done as much as possible with the idea, who are these people who are doing these things? And in most cases, one consistent pattern that they're finding is that these people feel lost. They don't feel they have a connection with anybody. So we decided the direction on today's workshop would be, how can we as educators show individualized help and attention to all of the students or all of the people we come in contact, but specifically for the educators, for those students with whom you come in contact every day. And so we want to talk about some of those things and give some suggestions on things that you might do. And we're going to start off today's workshop by showing a video. Now, this video has two parts to it. And the first part is going to show students in school where the teacher just doesn't really pay much attention to them. And then the second part of the video, it's only about 3 minutes long. The second part of the video is going to show what happens when the students get paid individual attention. And what we would like you to do as you look at the video, note those things which the teachers do that really made a difference in their school. And we're going to be talking about some of these things, but we're going to cue up the video now and watch this. I think you'll enjoy it. Well, the first part you might not enjoy very much, but you'll see the contrast between the two.
Hey, Mr. Q. Did you see that? Why would somebody do that? Please go into the classroom, no talking, quietly.
Hey, Miss Meredith, how you doing?
We need you inside.
How do you think that makes us feel?
I forgot my number.
What's your name?
Jordan
What's your last name?
Carter.
All right. Go ahead.
School is hard enough.
Come on in, sit down quietly at your desks, and begin writing.
This kind of stuff just makes it harder.
I said quietly, please. Who's talking? Is it you, Sophie? Don't let it be you.
Don't believe me?
Sophie.
Please just watch.
I'm not up here for me, I'm up here for you. Pay attention, okay? Now somebody answer me. Somebody needs to answer me really fast.
Every time we're ignored or yelled at or silenced, a teacher takes away what's possible.
No horseplay, no running, and especially no talking.
Moment by moment.
Miss McGarity, your student's behavior yesterday in the lunchroom, it was terrible. Next time, silent lunch.
Did you hear that? Stay in line and catch a bubble. I'm not playing.
If this is education, we're in trouble.
Bye, Miss McGarity.
Frederick Douglass said, once you learn to read, you'll be forever free. The way it is now, 2 of the 3 of us will never be able to really read. It doesn't have to be this way.
Hey, Jordan, how you doing?
Good.
Good.
Everyone we meet throughout our day can make a difference.
I've been waiting for you to arrive.
All the difference.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Great.
Bye, Jordan. Bye, Jason.
Good morning, Jordan.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. How are you?
Good.
Go ahead and put your number in.
Talk with
I
us,
don't know my number.
not at us.
That's okay. I'll look it up for you. Go ahead, sweetheart.
Okay.
All right. Have a
Teach
good
us what we need to know.
Good morning.
That's how we get smarter.
Well, good morning, Sophie, Janicia, and Jordan.
And when you talk with us and teach us, give us bigger and bigger words.
Now what I'd like you to do, children, is turn around and converse with your neighbor and discuss where the mother might have gone.
Words that we can use to read and understand,
She is prey for eagles, so she hunts at night.
and that will take us places we can never reach without you.
Remember, we're entering the learning zone. Now, how can we show our respect to the children and teachers who are working?
We can walk quietly.
Yes. Okay, kids, so what I'd like you to do is continue writing your narrative, documenting your emotions if you were the baby owl and your mother abandoned you in the nest.
What can you do? Learn all that you can so that you can challenge us to be our best.
You would have stayed and assisted them in whatever they needed.
Share yourself with us and show us how to share ourselves with others. Give us courage. Give us compassion. Help us find our own voices so we can become who we are meant to be.
Why would you want to silence us?
It's really interesting. We've already seen several comments in the chat room. And Dr. Jake, let's go through a few of these because I think that very interesting and impressive that it is. But what did you see that really you think made a difference?
Well, I know, Dr. Ray, one thing when I started watching it is I saw the negative part and I'm like, I've seen this in some schools. I've and it just makes me really cringe, but all the positive things that really come out of it are so powerful and so easy to do too. Who would want to be around kids and not be happy, not be kind and considerate and do whatever they can to help?
And and we can talk a lot about reading and writing and math and science and every subject in the world, but it's not going to happen for most people if we don't start thinking about this personal connection with students. And I hear Riham, teachers really need some attention too. We're going to talk about that a little bit. They're out of energy, and so that's how sometimes they do. I've often said that I think the good teachers really need to be good actors and actresses, because what they don't need, what your students don't need is to know that you had a bad day yesterday, you didn't get any sleep last night, your children were disruptive at home, you got a bill in the mail that you can't pay for and all that stuff. That just presents negative energy. And that's hard. Here's Amina who says, teachers need to be humble. Remember, we are the servants. The students are the ones we serve. And when we switch that around and we say we're the servers and the students are the ones who are going to benefit, we switch that around because we truly are the servants.
And Dr. Ray on Facebook, Mona writes, attitude. You have to have a good attitude. And that's really what it is, like you just said. You have to be able to put the things aside, the struggles that you might have had before coming to school. And how can you not be in a school and be happy? I know there's struggles that can occur sometimes, but the best way and the most effective way we can be as educators, have a good attitude and go out of our way to connect with students and help them and support them, because they'll remember how they were treated more than they'll remember any of the math or science or English that you teach them.
Yeah. Marvo just wrote, and I like this a lot. We teachers are both mothers and fathers to them also. We are their home when they are in school, and we don't disregard their homes, but we have to make as comfortable of a home atmosphere as we can, just as good parents do that at home. And so, great point.
Well, and I know in the school where I'm at, we're in an area where there's a lot of poverty. So there's not the mothers and fathers in the home like there should be. And so we act a lot like the mothers and fathers, that attention, the meals, seeing how they are and making sure that they're taken care of. But that attention is what they're going to remember the most of, and that attitude and how they're treated. So many of you have a lot of different types of students, a lot of different types of schools in which you work. And we just have to remember, no matter what the struggles there are with those students or what kind of background that they come in, that we need to help them and support them and help them feel respected, be courteous and kind. And in turn, that's going to help really improve your school culture. And that's one of the standards and indicators that we focus on in accreditation. Dr. Ray and I have been in many schools throughout the world, and we always say in the first few minutes, you know what kind of school it is by when you come in through the door, how you're greeted, how things look, how people are treated to one another. It's very, very telling.
Yeah, and I learned that lesson. I learned it. It was pointed out to me when I was a principal, and I think I've shared this before, but one of the salesmen, and always get salesmen to come and trying to sell things to you. He came in and he said, there's something different about the atmosphere of this school. And that was a very positive thing. And it's the atmosphere that is shown in the classroom. And you notice the one lady who was obviously the principal or the administrator, she's important too. And teachers, and we're going to show this in just a little bit further, but teachers need to make sure they greet students, each student, each day. And we'll show a video in just a little bit about maybe some ways that we can suggest to have you help this be happy. Was there anything else? I like this, and absolutely love is the key, and the importance of school climate. And don't ever tell anybody I said this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Math, science, English, social studies, those aren't nearly as important as what we're talking about today, because if we do this well, what we're talking about today, everything else falls in place.
And one thing that I tell my staff members, not just teachers, is usually the first person who connects with a child that's associated with the school is the bus driver or someone right at the front of the school, right, Dr. Ray? And so
exactly.
Yeah, and I like the part in the video where during the positive part where she says, "I've been waiting for you," and that one really just touched me because. If a student comes into school like that kind of first interaction, no matter what they went through in the morning, or if they're just not a morning person, or they're upset, or their brother was being mean to them, or they're hungry, they're gonna have a smile on their face. And so we need to teach all of our staff members, our bus drivers, our support staff that welcome all the students. And as administrators, if there's administrators out there, you need to be in the front of the school building where your students are coming. I always place myself where I can see the bus students coming in and the people who walk and getting dropped off. I'm right there at that interchange, so I can say their name and welcome them into the school, because I think saying their name is very, very powerful, that they know that we know who they are and that we want to connect with them and we care about them.
Yeah, and I was in a school once where the person most kids wanted to go talk to and just say hello was the school custodian, because the custodian or the maid or whatever the term you use was always very friendly and open with students. And that supports what happens in the classrooms. So let's go through some of these things kind of individually and maybe make some suggestions. One suggestion, which I'll start off with, is to show praise to your students. Everybody appreciates that when somebody says something, you know, that is really a nice shirt you have on today, or I'm so glad that you're here today. We missed you yesterday, and you just make our whole class complete when you're there. But any kind of praise, and especially those students who perhaps are a little bit shy, working out and so forth, everybody needs to hear a little praise. So that's the first thing I want to suggest.
Yeah, and let me add to that. There's been a lot of research on praise, and Dale Carnegie talks about praise, that we should praise regularly, and we should be specific with our praise too. And it should encourage positive behavior. So if you see a student writing, they're practicing their letters, or they're practicing a math problem, hey, Johnny, I really like how you did the letter J here, or I really like how you did this math problem. That's powerful. That reinforces that behavior. And I mean, many of you teach high school. I'm sure you can think of some good examples, or some college professors are here too. And then there's also some research by Kaufman, who says when you authentically praise a student or have a positive interaction, the student's brain releases dopamine. So that's a natural reaction for them to feel that positivity throughout their body. And so that's another way to build that relationship and help them feel comfortable in the school and want to do the best that they can.
And thanking students also, being thankful to students for something specific. You know, the general idea, hey, this is a great class today. That's really nice to say, but they need to hear something individual. And if a student did something special, I saw you pulling the chairs back into the table today, call the student by name, saying, thank you so much for doing that. That's all good stuff. It's individualized, and just knowing that somebody noticed something positive about me. We want to talk now about another big one. We kind of led into it a little bit ago, and we have a video here that we want you to see about how we greet students each day. You'll chuckle at it, and it's funny, but it is important that each day the teacher be at the door of the class welcoming students coming in. And you'll see in the video a couple of suggestions on how that can happen.
Yeah, we actually have two videos.
Oh, two videos, that's correct.
But yeah, this is a good one that just talks about research behind it and some good examples.
The driver for learning is the social connection. Activating a child's cognitive skills begins with activating their social connectedness. Children in this school are starting the day with an adult saying to them, I see you, I know you, I'm connecting with you, and you're important to me.
We start each day by greeting every kid at the door. Good morning, Declan.
You look pretty, Miss Turner.
Thank you, baby. Guess what I sang this weekend? Every classroom does some variation of, would you like a high five, handshake, or hug? Essentially, it's what greeting would you like?
How you doing, handsome? Good.
There is a great deal of cultural sensitivity and empowerment for children to say, here is how I want to greet you.
High five, handshake, or hug. You got your hair done? Good morning, Molly. You got your hair done? Let me turn around. I love it. All right, we're gonna have a good day today? All right. High five, handshake, or hug. During that time, I'm just trying to connect with them. All right. Help them from the transition from home to school, and just kind of like a pulse check to see where they are. Oh, I knew you wanted a hug. How are you feeling today, sir?
Good.
We gonna have a good day? Look at my eyes. Do they look escalated? Do they look triggered? Do they look upset? So it's a way for me to see, okay, who needs to be where? How can I help? How can I be assistance to start their day off most effectively?
Good morning, Ariella.
How you doing today? I'm being very intentional about my interactions with students, right? So it's not just I'm in the back of the room, hey, come in. No, I'm making a connection with them. I have eye contact with them. I'm checking in how they're doing. I'm checking to make sure they're okay. Good morning, friends. Good morning, friends. I think the impact is deep relationships. I get to know my students. I get to check in with them. I get to find out something about them. They get to find out something about me. We get to make a connection. And that starts with the greeting at the door. All right, come on in.
So a child is walking in the door feeling cared for, empowered, and encouraged. And that teacher is focusing in on who that child is. And that's how the day starts.
Should we show the other one, Dr. Ray?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do, because it's older children
Yeah.
and some ideas.
Yeah, because I think sometimes we think that this is only for elementary kids. I've been a high school principal for a number of years. High school kids also want to do this. This is some junior high students. So in this video, the teacher has a separate handshake with every single student. They build that relationship that way.
You ready, Chef? I don't know if you're ready. You ready? All right, what you got?
There are a couple of things that you probably saw, but I want to point out. Did you notice two things, especially with the elementary students? The teacher is at their level, not up, but either sitting down or maybe kneeling or whatever. Probably sitting down would be easier, so that the teacher can see the student at eye level. And the other thing is the eye contact, EYE contact. It's really important whenever you're dealing with any student for any reason to have eye contact. And you noticed in the first video how she felt the one student was maybe not as with it as he would feel comfortable. And so she kind of played a little bit further. And as far as the hugging, a couple people mentioned that may not always be appropriate. It might not be needed all the time, but some students really need that physical contact. And yes, you can't do it all the time, but find ways to periodically and make sure. I even suggest at the end of the day or at the end of the class period, a teacher might make a note of, did I miss talking with somebody today? I want to make sure I do tomorrow, so that you can kind of keep a note of those students you're working with.
And Dr. Ray, I like how you mentioned looking in their eye and using their name and giving your full attention. I think that's why we encourage students to, hey, look me in the eye when we're doing this and let's talk about it, because that gives you that connection between each other.
And you notice when the teacher too was working with groups, especially in the first video, she sat at the table with the students, and she was part of the group or tried to make it look like she was part of the group. So that was really helpful.
You know, and there's a few comments that have said that they just don't have the time to do this. And I understand that. And I think if you build it into your schedule, a lot of classes like to start with a bell ringer, where there's some kind of an activity at the beginning of the class. You could see in that first video that we did the Edutopia video, that they were having breakfast in the classroom. That's something that some schools do. My school does it. And that they would say hi to her in the doorway, and then they'd go in and eat their breakfast. They probably had an assignment up on the board with some additional activities that they could do. And so just find ways to do that. This is just one idea to connect with them and welcome them. But making that connection is what is key. You figure out what works best for your culture, for your country, and your school and your classroom, and we can you'll be able to make a big difference at that point.
Yeah, and those kind of things. They did a few other ideas just quickly. Most all the students, well, all of the students have lives outside of school. And, you know, if you can find something, for instance, you might have somebody who's on one of the sports teams, and they had a game last night, or a match, or a football game, or whatever. And sometimes it's great if you can go visit that, even if it's just for a little bit. Hey, I saw your match last night, and boy, that was a tight match, and you all did it. You know, knowing that the teacher cares enough about their lives outside of school. A student who was absent yesterday. Oh, so good to have you back. I hope you're feeling better, or whatever the reason was. It's that individualized, there's something specific about me that the teacher notices. And it's not just teachers, as we said earlier, it's administrators, it's everybody in the school who takes a special interest. There are no excuses really for not paying attention to students. And sometimes those students who act out the worst are those who need your attention. And just doing it in a positive way. Towards the end, we're going to show you another video, and I hope you look at one thing that's in this video about the student who had 18 problems, or excuse me, 20 problems on a particular quiz. Pay special attention to what the lady says about that. If you have an opportunity at the end of class, be sure to just give them a good evening. Hey, I hope you have a good evening tonight, good time with your family, going out to a game or going to an activity. And tomorrow, if you'd like it, let's hear about this when you get here tomorrow, and tell us about the thing that you did today.
And Dr. Ray, can I talk about going to students' activities outside of the classroom? I think that the students will know that. They recognize that. I've done it many, many times. I do it regularly. They will come back to you the next day and say, hey, I saw you at my basketball game or soccer game or my play or my concert. And that will build that relationship. They'll feel so much more comfortable with you, because as our focus with this presentation is to make sure everyone understands that these positive relationships create safe spaces for learning. And that's one comment that she said in that first video, the Edutopia video. They create safe spaces for learning. And remember, when you welcome them and you're interacting with them in the class, outside the class, you're talking with them, you're laughing with them. This actually, again, helps, your body releases the hormone oxytocin, which it's a good feeling. It's the happy feeling that we want to have in the classroom. And so it's very, very powerful, and we need to focus on that.
Yeah, and Marwa made a comment that sometimes this can be overdone, and I agree with that. You have to be very careful about not overdoing it. But the real key is each student needs to feel some kind of connection with somebody. Might not be the teacher in the classroom, might not be the close connection, but with somebody in the school. And I know, because of my years of experience working in schools, you can see it in their eyes sometimes when they feel lost, or they feel unappreciated, or they feel that nobody understands me, or whatever. You can see it in the eyes. So the eyes always tell a story.
Yeah, and I don't think we're trying to come across saying that this is the only thing that should happen in your classroom. It should just be a natural part of how you operate as a teacher. It should be naturally how you interact with teachers as you're teaching your content, as you're giving your activities, and you're moving around and you're interacting with others, that you're realizing that the relationship is very important for student outcomes.
Exactly. And so we're not, as we said earlier, we're not failing to value the lessons that they have to learn, but having students in a mood in the classroom and we'll share more with you later. Having students, the mood in the classroom, knowing that they are at least known by the teacher or the administrator or whatever. And when I was a principal, I spent a lot of time just going to classrooms and sitting there, and so they saw me there. And so if they'd see me in the hall, they'd say, hey, hello, how are you? Or give me the high five or whatever. Those are really important.
Yeah, because going back now to interactions, positive relationships, that improves student behavior better than anything else. It improves behavior better than trying to give someone detentions or kicking them out of the classroom. In order for you to be proactive and have a positive classroom atmosphere and one that is focused on learning, you have to build those positive relationships. And that takes some time. And like Dr. Ray said, sometimes you have to make a concerted effort for it, writing some notes down about students that you might have missed and go back and try to connect with them. Some of the students that I have the best relationships with are the ones that struggle the most, because I've gone out of my way to really combat that negative behavior that I know it might be coming down a little bit later on. So go out of your way, connect with all your students, maybe a little bit more of an effort for those students that struggle with their behaviors, and you'll see some dramatic changes.
Exactly. And so again, and we want to emphasize, we're not saying this is the only thing you do in school, but it's the basis of everything you do in school. So keep that in mind and so forth. Dr. Jake, let's show the next video, the TED Talk. This is the one I was referring to earlier. And this is a TED Talk. Educators from give these they call them TED Talks. I think you'll enjoy this one, but it's right down the line of what we're talking about.
I have spent my entire life either at the schoolhouse, on the way to the schoolhouse, or talking about what happens in the schoolhouse. Both my parents were educators. My maternal grandparents were educators. And for the past 40 years, I've done the same thing. And so needless to say, over those years, I've had a chance to look at education reform from a lot of perspectives. Some of those reforms have been good, some of them have been not so good. And we know why kids drop out. We know why kids don't learn. It's either poverty, low attendance, negative peer influences. We know why. But one of the things that we never discuss, or we rarely discuss, is the value and importance of human connection. Relationships. James Comer says that no significant learning can occur without a significant relationship. George Washington Carver says all learning is understanding relationships. Everyone in this room has been affected by a teacher or an adult. For years, I have watched people teach. I have looked at the best and I've looked at some of the worst. A colleague said to me one time, they don't pay me to like the kids. They pay me to teach a lesson. The kids should learn it. I should teach it. They should learn it. Case closed. Well, I said to her, you know, kids don't learn from people they don't like. She said, that's just a bunch of hooey. And I said to her, well, your year is going to be long and arduous, dear. Needless to say, it was. Some people think that you can either have it in you to build a relationship or you don't. I think Stephen Covey had the right idea. He said you ought to just throw in a few simple things, like seeking first to understand as opposed to being understood. Simple things like apologizing. You ever thought about that? Tell a kid you're sorry, they're in shock. I taught a lesson once on ratios. I'm not real good with math, but I was working on it. And I got back and looked at that teacher edition. I taught the whole lesson wrong. So I came back to class the next day and I said, look, guys, I need to apologize. I taught the whole lesson wrong. I'm so sorry. They said, that's okay, Miss Pearson. You were so excited. We just let you go. I have had classes that were so low so academically deficient that I cried. I wondered, how am I going to take this group in 9 months from where they are to where they need to be? And it was difficult. It was awfully hard. How do I raise the self-esteem of a child and his academic achievement at the same time? One year I came up with a bright idea. I told all my students, you were chosen to be in my class because I am the best teacher and you are the best students. They put us all together so we could show everybody else how to do it. One of the students said, really? I said, really? We have to show the other classes how to do it. So when we walk down the hall, people will notice us. So you can't make noise. You just have to strut. And I gave him a saying to say, I am somebody. I was somebody when I came. I'll be a better somebody when I leave. I am powerful and I am strong. I deserve the education that I get here. I have things to do, people to impress, and places to go. And they said, yeah. You say it long enough, it starts to be a part of you. And so, I gave a quiz, 20 questions. Student missed 18. I put a +2 on this paper and a big smiley face. He said, Miss Pearson, is this an F? I said, yes. He said, then why'd you put a smiley face? I said, because you on the roll. You got 2 right, you didn't miss them all. I said, and when we review this, won't you do better? He said, yes, ma'am, I can do better. You see, -18 sucks all the life out of you. +2 said, I ain't all bad. For years, I watched my mother take the time at recess to review, go on home visits in the afternoon, buy combs and brushes and peanut butter and crackers to put in her desk drawer for kids that needed to eat, and a washcloth and some soap for the kids who didn't smell so good. See, it's hard to teach kids who stink. And kids can be cruel. And so she kept those things in her desk, and years later, after she retired, I watched some of those same kids come through and say to her, you know, Miss Walker, you made a difference in my life. You made it work for me. You made me feel like I was somebody when I knew at the bottom I wasn't. And I want you to just see what I've become. And when my mama died 2 years ago at 92, there were so many former students at her funeral. It brought tears to my eyes, not because she was gone, but because she left a legacy of relationships that could never disappear. Can we stand to have more relationships? Absolutely. Will you like all your children? Of course not. And you know your toughest kids are never absent. Never. You won't like them all, and the tough ones show up for a reason. It's the connection, it's the relationships. And while you won't like them all, the key is they can never, ever know it. So teachers become great actors and great actresses, and we come to work when we don't feel like it, and we listen to policy that doesn't make sense, and we teach anyway. We teach anyway because that's what we do. Teaching and learning should bring joy. How powerful would our world be if we had kids who were not afraid to take risks, who were not afraid to think, and who had a champion? Every child deserves a champion, an adult who will never give up on them, who understands the power of connection and insists that they become the best that they can possibly be. Is this job tough? You betcha. Oh God, you betcha. But it is not impossible. We can do this. We're educators. We're born to make a difference. Thank you so much.
Great. I had mentioned earlier, I love the example of the student who only got 2 right and got a +2 on the paper. We tend to try to -18 or whatever. And I thought that was great. And a couple of people put in the comments about the legacy. We are leaving a legacy. Every person, every student you meet, casually or for a longer period of time, will associate you with something, either something that he always or she always made me feel really important. He or she always made me feel that I mattered, that I made a difference, and that has made a difference in my life. And we're going to talk about it again in just a little bit. What we'd like to do is, would you just, we're kind of through with most of the things that we've said today. Would you just put in the chat room one thing that you learned today that you're going to follow through on and you're going to do your best to do this school year? Beautiful speech, yes. Most things are familiar. Perfection is unattainable. That's good. Yes, engage students. Praise each student. Find something to praise a child. Never, oh wow, never embarrass a child. Oh wow.
Or teaching should bring joy. And I think we do that when we're trying to connect with students and building those relationships, and we're pouring our heart into it. And when we pour our heart into it, we're building those relationships. We're excited about the subject matter that we're teaching, but we're more excited about the people that we're teaching.
Yeah, and also the whole idea of trying to connect a student with, for instance, I read one example of a teacher who had the students writing some assignment the day before in class, and the next day when the teacher came to class, she said, "I noticed that several of you made comment about the travel industry, traveling." And so we're going to talk a little about traveling. That student said, "Hey, I was one of those students." And she's really noticing that I wrote something about traveling and vacation. So any little thing like that, encouragement is power, create a legacy. These are beautiful thoughts that you're coming up with. And, you know, I guess I would hope also these sessions are all recorded. Go back and watch it again and again and again. Dr. Jake and I have tried to just share some general ideas with you, and we certainly don't have the answers to everything, but if we can get every teacher, every administrator, every educator who is on this video today or on this workshop today, who can really say, I'm going to try to make a difference in every student with whom I come in contact this year, I'm going to try to make a difference. That will be outstanding.
And with that, Dr. Ray, my bet is that most of us are aware of these different techniques to build relationships. Sometimes we just have to be reminded. I know as a teacher, you know, hearing about, oh, I need to greet my students. I need to get into the hallway and say hi to them as they're passing by or coming into my classroom when I was teaching high school. That's the legacy, is making those connections in the hallways when they're coming in, and then interacting with them in the classroom. So I like that part, is leaving a legacy. And I think a lot of people focused on that. And on Facebook, there's a lot of good comments too. Evan writes, we're born, we have amazing opportunities to be able to make a difference in ways that other people aren't able to do that. And so we should be grateful every time going to work to be able to make that kind of a difference in the lives of so many people and have such a lasting effect on them. That legacy, again, going back to the YouTube we just watched.
Right. So Dr. Jake and I talked about this next part, and we're going to do it, and we're not going to do it, and we're going to do it, and we're not going to do it. So I'm feeling now I want to do it, Dr. Jake. Yeah, and some of you have heard this before, and if you've heard it before, I can hear this story again and again and again, and it inspires me each time. Let me read you this beautiful story that goes like this. There's a story many years ago of an elementary teacher. Her name is Mrs. Thompson. And as she stood in front of her 5th grade class on the very first day of school, she told the children a lie. Like most teachers, she looked at her students and said that she loved them all the same. But that was impossible, because there in the front row, slumped in his seat, was a little boy named Teddy Stoddard. Mrs. Thompson had watched Teddy the year before and noticed that he didn't play well with the other children, and that his clothes were messy, and that he constantly needed a bath, and Teddy could be unpleasant. It got to a point where Mrs. Thompson would actually take delight in marking the papers with a bright red pen marking X's and then putting a big fat F at the top of the paper. At the school where Mrs. Thompson taught, she was required to review each child's past records, and she put Teddy's off until last. She said that she would love all the children the same. But then when she reviewed the files, she was in for a surprise. Teddy's first grade teacher said, "Teddy is a bright child with a ready laugh. He does his work neatly and has good manners. He's a joy to have in my classroom." His second grade teacher said, "Teddy is an excellent student, well liked by his classmates, but he is troubled because his mother has a terminal illness and life at home must be a struggle." His third grade teacher wrote, "His mother's death has been hard on him. He tries to do his best, but his father doesn't show much interest, and his home life will soon affect him if steps aren't taken." Teddy's fourth grade teacher, "Teddy is withdrawn and doesn't show much interest in school. He doesn't have any friends, and sometimes he sleeps in class." By now, Mrs. Thompson realized the problem, and she was ashamed of herself. She felt even worse when her students brought her Christmas presents wrapped in beautiful ribbons and bright paper, except for Teddy's. His present was clumsily wrapped in heavy brown paper that he got from the grocery store bag. Mrs. Thompson took pains to open it in the middle of the other presents. Some of the children started to laugh when she found a rhinestone bracelet with some of the stones missing and a bottle that was 1/4 full of perfume. But she stifled the children's laughter when she explained how pretty the bracelet was, putting it on and dabbing some of the perfume on her wrist. Teddy Stoddard stayed after school that day just long enough to say, "Mrs. Thompson, today you smell just like my mom used to smell." After the children left, she cried for at least an hour. On that very day, she quit teaching reading and writing and arithmetic. Instead, she began to teach children. Mrs. Thompson paid particular attention to Teddy. As she worked with him, his mind seemed to come alive. The more she encouraged him, the faster he responded. By the end of the year, Teddy had become one of the smartest children in the class. And despite her lie that she would love all the children the same, Teddy became one of her teacher's pets. A year later, she got a note pushed under her door from Teddy, letting her know that she was still the best teacher he had ever had in his life. 6 years went by before she got another note from Teddy. He then wrote that he had finished high school, third in his class, and she was still the best teacher he had ever had in his life. 4 years after that, she got another letter stating that while things had been tough at times, he'd stayed at school, had stuck with it, and would soon graduate from college with the highest honors. He assured Mrs. Thompson that she was still the best and favorite teacher he had ever had in his whole life. Then 4 years passed, and yet another letter came. This time he explained that after he got his bachelor's degree, he decided to go a little further. The letter explained that she was still the best teacher he had had. But now, since he had gone to medical school to become a doctor, his name was a little longer. The letter was signed Theodore F. Stoddard, M.D., medical doctor. But the story doesn't end there. You see, there was yet another letter that spring. Teddy said that he had met this girl and was going to be married. He explained that his father had died a couple years ago, and he was wondering if Mrs. Thompson might agree to sit in the place at the wedding that was usually reserved for the mother of the groom. Of course, Mrs. Thompson did. And guess what? She wore that bracelet, the one with the several rhinestones missing, and she made sure she was wearing the perfume that Teddy remembered his mother wearing on their last Christmas together. They hugged each other, and Dr. Stoddard whispered in Mrs. Thompson's ear, "Thank you, Mrs. Thompson, for believing in me. Thank you so much for making me feel important and showing me that I could make a difference." Mrs. Thompson, with tears in her eyes, whispered back, she said, "Teddy, you have it all wrong. You were the one who taught me that I could make a difference. I didn't know how to teach until I met you. I hope you remember that story. Beautiful story. I love it every time I read it. And that's the importance of the roles we have. Want to finish with just a quick comment. We have a daughter who passed away at the age of 19. She was a victim of cystic fibrosis. I don't know if any of you know that disease, but it's a hereditary lung disease. And she was a sophomore in college at the time and was very well liked. Everybody liked her, knew her, and she was just a friendly person and had so many friends. In fact, over 500 students from the university came to her funeral. But after she was gone and we were looking through some of her papers, we found something that really has stuck with us. She had read in a book this statement, and she had listed it as her life's goal. And the statement from the book was this, which she said was her life goal. Remember, everybody is a little bit lonely. That's each of you, each of us, each student you see, each person you see on the street, each person with whom you come in contact, the clerk at the store, the custodian, everybody you come in contact, all of us have a little bit of loneliness, and it's our job as educators to help students not feel lonely.
Well, thank you, Dr. Ray. I know it's not easy to share personal information, especially starting off with Teddy's story. It's such a powerful, powerful story. What a great way to start the school year, to remember that relationships are the foundation of all learning, the foundation of everything that we should do. But I'm especially touched by the story of your daughter. I think we're all motivated. I think we're all inspired. Looks like there's a few people that have some tears in their eyes too. In the chat, they've posted that, and they're also touched. And so I think we can all feel Dr. Ray's legacy that he's leaving, but the legacy that is left in the Teddy Stoddard story doesn't end after you build that relationship with that student. It doesn't end with Dr. Ray's wife, or it doesn't end with Dr. Ray. That ripple effect, we're hoping that continues and it affects millions and millions of people. That ripple effect is what we need to see in the world. Because we often hear in the news all the negativity, all the strife that's going on, but there's kind people everywhere, and there are people that want to build those relationships and that want to make a difference. And as educators, I think we're fortunate because I think we're on the front lines. Some of you said that that YouTube that we watched, the TED Talk, that she sounded like a general talking to her soldiers. And that's what we're kind of talking to you about. We're on the front lines right now. We're trying to make sure that we're building good relationships with our students, that we're building relationships with the staff members that we come in contact with, and we're making that ripple effect of kindness and of just a positive attitude and trying to help everyone out and do the best that we can. So thank you, Dr. Ray. I really appreciate that and appreciate everything that you do.
So we have just a few minutes here. If somebody would like to either make a short comment or ask a question, we'll take a few minutes. Raise your hand. I see Farouz has his hand raised. You want to be first? Turn your.
Are you okay, Dr. Ray? While we're doing the questions, that we can put the survey in the chat.
Sure, go ahead.
I'll put the survey in the chat. You can see the survey and the newsletter. Please fill out the survey. This is where you're going to be able to get your certificate. We'll process the certificate in the middle of the week. We'll email it out to you. So make sure that your name is correct and your email is correct. And if you have any comments or suggestions of topics, please let us know. You can always contact us at info@arrayglobal.org or contact us on Facebook. We're here to help you. You don't have to be an Array Global for us to help you. We're here to make a difference. Farouz, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
Yes, am I audible?
Yep.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Dr. Ray and Dr. Francom. The very first word I used to comment in your previous workshops was the word insightful, but this time I'd rather pick the word inspiring. was also inspiring. Thank you very much to all of your efforts. Having attentively and very closely watched the entire presentation, including all those videos that you showed us, I have a two-part question. My first question is, I used to have a physicist teacher who would teach in the best way possible. His classes were, the most interesting in the entire Lyceum. But we would have no connection with him at all. Like there was no human connection outside the classroom. He was all too unapproachable. But inside the class, we would learn a lot from his classes. So my question is particularly related to that last video. Like we didn't have any connection, but still we learned a lot. And how did this, come into being? What do you think? And my second question is, do we have to all the time blame the teachers for lack of positivity in the class? Are they to blame for lack of positivity, the positive atmosphere? Or like if the students feel negative about the classes, is that all, have to be shouldered by the teacher? Is that the teacher's responsibility? I hope my questions are clear. Thank you.
Let me start, Firuz, by the first question, which was the teacher who inside the classroom really, we all have different strengths and weaknesses. And I think that's where we can help each other as teachers, as educators, where we can help each other. The fact that you say you learned a lot from him says that maybe he had more personal connection that is immediately demonstrative. You might not see it immediately, but the fact that he did that, and we all have different strengths and weaknesses. So if we can find ways to humanize teachers like that, if you will with me, we should do that. And that's where I think the administrator can really help. Hey, the students in your class are learning like you can't believe. And how about if I come in your class sometime and let's talk with the students together and kind of find ways to encourage that student to do that. And the second part of Firuz, just the second part of your question, I just lost it. You turn your mic on. Firuz, turn your mic on. Dr. Jake, did you get the second part of his question? I'm sorry.
I was busy posting some things, so I didn't.
And Firuz, we can't hear you.
Let me see. Let me make sure you can unmute.
There we go.
There he goes.
Okay. Now, Firuz, we can hear you.
Yeah. Okay. I was saying unmute me. So my second part of the question was about the lack of positivity. Like, do we have to blame the teachers all the time for lack of positivity or the negativity in the class? Who should take responsibility for that?
My first response, Firuz, is to take the word blame out of your vocabulary. We don't ever need to blame anybody. We need to find strengths. It's like, you got two right. You're on the road. Whatever, let's find something positive to deal with that teacher. And no, it's not always the teacher. Students come to school with what happened at home, what's happening in their lives. And we know that, but rather than saying, well, let's blame, I don't think we ever need to blame anybody, but let's talk about ways to encourage them. Marwa, I think I see your hand up.
Marwa, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
Yes, sir, I'm here. Thank you so much for allowing me to pose this question. Actually, I have a comment and a question. The first comment is that I really want to stress this phrase, in the mood. So get your students to be in the mood first, get them to smile. Then later on, you can, as a second step, you can teach them, okay? So get them in the mood, motivate them, get them to have a positive view of themselves first, then you can proceed to teach. This is my comment. The question is about, do we have a checklist or a framework, a criteria for this relationship between a teacher and his students? Of course, everything has to have limits. Okay, so is there any criteria or framework for this relationship and connection between the teacher and students? Do we have something like this? Thank you.
Well, the first thing I would say, and Dr. Jake will probably respond to, first thing is let's get the idea of a checklist out of our heads. It's going to be individual with everybody. And so I think as we get to know our students, as we get to know each other, we're going to find those things that individually will make a difference. So I would say do a lot of reading, find some materials on how we relate to other people. And I think each of us needs to take inventory of our own personalities. How do I come across? Think about how you come across. So I would answer it that way. Amani,
Ray, if I can add a little bit to that, I'll put a book that is on Amazon that one of my colleagues wrote in Northwestern Montana. It's a great book about relationships. It kind of has what you're talking about as far as a framework, because I agree with Dr. Ray. You don't want to make a list because everyone's different. Everyone connects with people differently. Like Farouz talked about the teacher who just got up there and taught and was an excellent teacher. But I think for that one, to go back to that question too, people were able to connect with him because they could see how much time and effort he put into things. And maybe people didn't need that kind of attention like you saw in some of the videos. And so everyone has their different ways, their different languages on how they build relationships. So, but a framework, that would be interesting. Dr. Ray and I have actually started some different writing about that. And I included that book in there. I really like it. It talks about not just relationships, but culture in a school too. So the great question though.
Great. Amani, you want to unmute yourself? I think you can now. And your comment or question.
Yeah, thank you for the chance. Actually, I'm so grateful being here. I have like a piece of advice concerning what you guys have been teaching here. It's like, for many people's perceptions, they might think like this lesson is just special for the people or for the teachers who are just hired at school teaching and stuff like that. But I think this is the lesson which is very important for every person, because to my side, I take life as a classroom, and everybody in that class can be a teacher to somebody, and you can be a student to somebody too. So yes. I think by taking this one to the world, then I think each and every one of us right here, you may not be a teacher by professional, but if you are in life and you're living in this world, then you are a teacher automatically, because you have some people who will be learning from you. You have some people you'll be learning from them. So I think it's just a matter of us taking this as our responsibility and going, teaching people, mentoring them, and making sure that everybody that every person that we meet, every person that we get in touch with becomes a better person. And at the same time, we must find a lesson in each and every good person that we meet in life. That's all that I can say. Thank you.
Amani, that is great. I think you should
start
your own TikTok channel or something, because you nailed it. I mean, yeah, excellent thoughts.
Great. Is it Tomu? Tomu, you have to unmute yourself.
What I want to ask is that we have the groups of students. We have talked here and we left the other group, for example, the group which are suffering from maybe those mental handicapped children. We have them at school there. You may teach in class and you'll find somebody, he cannot hear well, or the student there is not able to hear what you are saying, and he has that problem. And you have talked here, and I didn't see you expose
I think we just lost.
I think we lost you, Tomo. So if you want to put your question in the chat, that would be great.
Yeah, we've lost you, Tomo.
Yep.
Let's go on to Matthias.
Matthias, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
Do you hear me?
Am I audible?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Okay, thank you for giving me the chance. I was trying to ask how teachers should make the connections or the relationship between children. I mean, the kids in the class or how should they do that? Thank you.
I broke up on me. Dr. Jake, did you hear his question?
Yeah, I think the big thing he was talking about is how can we build relationships with students, and again, we gave a lot of different tools. It doesn't mean that those tools are going to work with every single student, because every single student is different. And so we just need to find ways that we can connect with students and what works on their level. I said, what is someone's relationships language? Because everyone is a little bit different. Some students don't like to be hugged. Some students don't like to have someone right in their face asking them questions all the time. And we have to interact with them a little bit differently. We might have some special needs students too. And so we just need to figure out different ways that we can connect with them. Go back, watch our video, think about things, write some things down about ways that you can connect with students, and you'll be surprised.
I thought I heard something different that Matthias was asking. And here's what I think I heard is how students relate with each other. I thought I heard that differently. And, one of the things that as teachers we can do is have them work in small groups and purposely put people and mix them together. Don't have the bluebirds, which are the fast learners, and the red birds, which are the medium learners, mix students up. And usually when I do a workshop and I have people and we divide them into groups, I say something like, this is August 20th, 2022. Whose birthday is closest to today? You're the team leader. Rather than somebody picking out who's the most, and sometimes people don't want to be, but do that with your students too. Let them experience each other and put them in a relationship. And I thought that was really what Matthias.
Well, Dr. Ray, what do you think about actually talking to students about these different relationship developing tools that we've talked about? Gratitude, praise, connecting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like at the end of the workshop today, we asked you to write something in the chat room, something you learned today, or something you're going to be different. What if every class ending was, hey, would you raise your hand and tell me something that happened today in class that you're going to remember, and get students to really try to rethink through all of these things. Maureen, I think.
Maureen, do you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah, I think.
Hello, I'm Maureen Kaya from Tanzania. First of all, I want to comment that if teachers are teaching students, they must have the same time of making connections and the same time of teaching. For instance, my mathematics teacher usually come in class, have a lot of time making stories more than the time of teaching. So in our class, many students get hard times in understanding mathematics, since our teacher starts with a lot of stories that even we forget if he's going to teach or he just came to tell you guys stories. So teachers should have the equal time of making connections and equal time of studying. And my question was that, what if students came in class today with a bad mood of understanding, then he or she goes to the teacher and asks teacher, can you teach me? I didn't understand the period of today. And then the teacher told him or her, oh, I'm sorry, I can't repeat it because I get this tired, but you
Maureen, I think your internet connection isn't very...
Maureen, I picked up very little of what you said, but I did hear the word mood. Somebody asked earlier in the chat, how do you deal with a child with mood swing? Well, that's where I think you can get the help of other professionals, perhaps talking with the parents and finding out what is going on in the child's life. And sometimes you're going to have to get some outside help for dealing with some individual problems. And I apologize, Maureen, we just couldn't understand you. We'll take one more question, and we've gone way over time now, but I hope it's, by the way, some of you asked, could you repeat this workshop? Yes, you can video it anytime. It's available. You can watch it. And
or we could, Dr. Ray, pull in some other professionals, give some other ideas. But we have a great slate of workshops throughout the rest of the year. We hope everyone will be able to attend. So
great. Let's ask Miranda. Miranda,
yep, you should be able to unmute yourself. I think it's Mike.
Miranda, Mike. Did I call you the wrong name? Unmute yourself. There you go.
Oh, he just took his, oh no, there he is. Mike, you're still muted. There. Well, Dr. Ray, I think we're ready to wrap things up. I hope everyone has been able to have a chance to fill out the post-workshop survey. Please let us know if we can help out in any way.
And remember that next Saturday, same time, Dr. Jake and I will be doing, it'll be a shorter workshop. We're just going to be talking about Array Global and encourage schools to be with the possibility of accrediting with us, and will certainly work. And Farouz, my words of wisdom were my story about my daughter, and everybody is a little bit lonely. That was my words of wisdom for the day. You missed it. Okay.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great week.
Thank you, everybody.